A wave of allegations swirling around a controversial prophetic figure has ignited one of the most intense debates within modern charismatic Christianity in recent years, forcing uncomfortable questions about spiritual authority, institutional loyalty, and the potential dangers of unchecked power in religious communities. At the center of the storm stands Chris Reed, a preacher and self-described prophet whose meteoric rise through influential charismatic ministries has now been overshadowed by accusations of deception, manipulation, sexual misconduct, and institutional cover-ups that critics say reveal deep structural problems within the prophetic movement itself. For years, Reed built a reputation as a uniquely gifted prophetic voice within segments of the charismatic Christian world. His supporters described him as a man with extraordinary spiritual insight, someone who could speak with uncanny precision about people's lives and circumstances. Conferences filled with eager audiences who believed they were witnessing supernatural gifts in action. Followers spoke of moments when Reed allegedly revealed hidden details about strangers, birthdays, family members, private struggles, information that seemed impossible for him to know naturally. To believers, these moments appeared to confirm that the ancient biblical gift of prophecy remained alive in the modern church. But critics now claim those moments were not miracles at all. Let's listen to what Mike Winger has to say about Chris Reed.
This guy right here is Chris Reed, and today you're going to learn about how leaders in the charismatic church have been allowing him to ruin people's lives. You're going to even hear testimony about how he, according to my witness, contributed to someone dying, got someone killed because of his prophecy.
All he could do was talk about the prophecy he got from Chris Reed. I watched him waste away and die, holding on to that prophetic word. These people kill people.
Chris Reed, he is a fake prophet who was recently leading, according to him, the third largest charismatic ministry in the United States. I have evidence that he is a fake prophet. I'll present that evidence today. I also have evidence to suggest he's a drug addict, that he groomed and sexually sinned with one of his students, and I don't think she's the only one. That he, like I said, got a man killed or contributed to having a man killed, having a man dying, I should say. He also lied to me in the name of God. We had a meeting, me and Chris, just days back, and he lied to my face, calling down curses from God if he was lying, and I have evidence that he lied in that meeting. I'll share that evidence today. I think this is all very relevant because I want to prove this guy wrong so that I can stop him from terrorizing people.
Instead, they argue that Reed built his reputation on techniques far less mystical and far more troubling. According to a growing chorus of detractors, Reed's prophetic accuracy may have relied not on divine revelation, but on a modern tool available to nearly anyone with an internet connection: social media. One of the central accusations leveled against Reed is that he secretly gathered personal data from Facebook profiles during live ministry sessions, using that information to create the illusion of supernatural knowledge. The technique, critics say, resembles what mentalists and stage performers call cold reading or hot reading, methods used to convince audiences that someone possesses paranormal insight. Those raising concerns claim the alleged pattern became noticeable during live-stream prophetic sessions in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. As churches shifted online in 2020, many charismatic ministers began hosting digital prayer meetings and prophetic broadcasts. In these settings, participants often typed their names or requests in live chat feeds. According to critics, that environment provided an opportunity for Reed to quickly search for those individuals online, while appearing to receive spontaneous spiritual insight. The allegations became more serious when several leaders within the charismatic community reportedly decided to test whether Reed's prophetic knowledge might actually be sourced from publicly available data. According to the account provided by critics, the test was straightforward. Several participants altered information on Facebook profiles, adding or modifying details about family members, locations, or life events, and then asked Reed for prophetic words during a live stream session. If Reed repeated the inaccurate information, it would strongly suggest that he was gathering details from social media rather than receiving supernatural revelation. The results, critics claim, were revealing. During the test sessions, Reed reportedly spoke prophetic words that included the deliberately altered details. To those conducting the experiment, that outcome appeared to confirm their suspicions. The prophetic insight might not have been prophetic at all. These accusations echo earlier controversies involving other charismatic prophetic figures. In the past decade, multiple ministries within the prophetic movement have faced scrutiny over claims that prophetic accuracy sometimes relied on research rather than revelation. Such allegations strike at the heart of charismatic theology, which teaches that God continues to grant supernatural insight to certain believers for the purpose of guiding and encouraging the church. For critics, however, the issue is not simply theological but ethical. If prophetic words are presented as divine messages but actually rely on internet searches, they argue the practice crosses into deception. And in this case, they claim the consequences may have been far more serious than embarrassment. One of the most emotionally charged accusations connected to Reed involves testimony from individuals who claim that a man's death was linked to a prophetic message he received. According to this account, the man allegedly held on to Reed's prophecy with deep conviction, believing it contained divine guidance about his future. Critics say he shaped major life decisions around that prophetic word, trusting that it reflected God's will. As the story is told by those raising concerns, the man eventually deteriorated physically and emotionally while clinging to the prophecy, refusing to abandon the belief that its promises would be fulfilled. Critics argue that this tragic situation illustrates how powerful prophetic declarations can become in the lives of devoted believers. Within charismatic communities, prophecy often carries profound weight. Followers may view it not merely as advice but as divine instruction. When a leader speaks prophetically, listeners may assume the message originates directly from God. That dynamic, critics warn, can create dangerous levels of influence. If a prophecy is wrong, exaggerated, or fabricated, the consequences can ripple far beyond a single moment in a church service. Believers may make life-altering choices, career moves, relationships, financial commitments, based on what they believe to be divine direction. This is why the allegations against Reed have triggered intense debate about accountability within charismatic ministries. Some critics say the issue goes far beyond one preacher. They argue that Reed's rise and the allegations surrounding him reveal a broader pattern of institutional protection within segments of the charismatic world. One focal point of that debate involves the influential church network connected to Bethel Church. According to critics, certain leaders within that network were reportedly informed about concerns regarding Reed's prophetic practices as early as 2020. Those raising accusations claim evidence of deceptive prophecy was compiled and presented to leaders associated with Bethel. They argue that the information should have prompted public warnings or disciplinary action. Instead, critics say no significant public response followed. The situation became even more controversial when Bill Johnson, the senior leader of Bethel Church, later wrote the foreword to one of Reed's books on prophetic ministry. For critics, that endorsement appeared to signal institutional support, despite the earlier concerns.
It's actually pretty easy. So if you'd like to be a prophet, by the end of this video, we can all be as prophetic as Chris Reed.
Arguing that internal conversations
this prophet, speaking of which, we did have like
are often more
a 2-hour talk not long ago.
They say it is possible that leaders believed the issues had been resolved privately, or that the allegations were not substantiated. Still, the endorsement became a flashpoint in the debate over accountability. For those questioning the prophetic movement's internal oversight, the episode seemed to illustrate how influential leaders can continue to rise, even when serious concerns exist behind the scenes. Reed's prominence grew further when he assumed leadership roles connected to Morningstar Ministries, an influential prophetic network founded by Rick Joyner. Morningstar has long been a central hub within charismatic prophetic circles, hosting conferences, media programs, and training schools that attract followers from around the world. When Reed eventually became president of Morningstar, supporters saw it as confirmation that his prophetic ministry had been recognized at the highest levels of the movement. But critics now argue that his rise also illustrates how charismatic institutions sometimes handle allegations internally rather than publicly. Among the most troubling accusations involves claims that Reed engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a woman who had been under his pastoral or spiritual influence. According to critics, the woman had been a student within the ministry context where Reed held authority. The relationship, they say, crossed ethical boundaries because of the power imbalance between a spiritual leader and someone seeking guidance from him. In religious settings, such dynamics can become deeply complicated. Followers often view spiritual mentors with extraordinary trust, believing those leaders represent divine authority or possess special spiritual insight. That trust can make individuals particularly vulnerable to manipulation. Critics say that when such relationships occur, they should trigger immediate accountability measures and transparent investigations. Instead, they claim the situation was addressed quietly within a limited circle of leaders. According to accounts circulated by critics, Reed was placed into what was described as a restoration process following the incident. In many churches, restoration programs are designed to help leaders recover spiritually after moral failures. These processes often involve counseling, oversight, and temporary removal from public ministry. But critics argue that the restoration in Reed's case was neither long enough nor transparent enough. They claim that Reed was returned to leadership roles relatively quickly, and that many members of the broader church community were never informed about the details of the situation. Defenders of restoration programs argue that the Christian tradition emphasizes forgiveness and redemption. They note that many churches believe leaders who repent sincerely should have opportunities to rebuild their lives and ministries. Yet critics counter that forgiveness does not eliminate the need for accountability, especially when leaders wield significant spiritual influence. The controversy has grown further with additional allegations involving drug use, grooming behavior, and intimidation through prophetic threats. Critics claim that Reed sometimes used prophetic language to warn individuals that opposing him could bring spiritual consequences. Such claims, if true, would represent a serious misuse of spiritual authority. Within religious communities that strongly believe in supernatural guidance, warnings framed as divine messages can carry enormous psychological weight. Followers might hesitate to question or challenge a leader if they fear doing so could anger God. This dynamic, critics say, highlights why accountability structures are essential in spiritual movements that emphasize prophetic authority. The Reed controversy has therefore become a broader case study in the challenges facing charismatic Christianity in the 21st century. Over the past 50 years, the global charismatic movement has grown dramatically. Millions of believers around the world now participate in churches that emphasize spiritual gifts such as prophecy, healing, and speaking in tongues. These practices, rooted in New Testament traditions, are central to the identity of many Pentecostal and charismatic communities. Yet rapid growth has also created organizational challenges. Unlike older denominations with established hierarchies and oversight systems, many charismatic ministries operate independently or within loosely connected networks. Leaders may hold tremendous influence without the formal accountability structures common in traditional church institutions. Critics argue that this environment can allow charismatic personalities to accumulate power quickly while avoiding scrutiny. When controversies arise, responses often happen privately within networks of leaders, rather than through transparent investigations. Supporters say this approach protects ministries from false accusations and unnecessary public scandal. Detractors say it can shield misconduct from exposure. The allegations surrounding Reed therefore resonate far beyond one individual. They raise uncomfortable questions about how religious communities balance faith and spiritual gifts with safeguards against abuse. For believers who deeply value prophetic ministry, the challenge is particularly painful. Many charismatic Christians say they have personally experienced genuine moments of spiritual insight and encouragement through prophetic words. At the same time, they acknowledge that abuses can occur when charismatic authority goes unchecked. In the wake of the Reed controversy, some leaders within the movement have begun discussing reforms. These proposals include clearer ethical guidelines for prophetic ministry, independent review boards for misconduct allegations, and stronger accountability relationships between church leaders. Others argue that prophetic gifts themselves are not the problem. Rather, the issue lies in how ministries handle authority and oversight. Whatever conclusions ultimately emerge, The unfolding debate has forced many believers to confront the complex intersection of faith, leadership, and human fallibility. Religious history is filled with examples of powerful spiritual movements that later faced internal crises over authority and integrity. From medieval revival movements to modern televangelism scandals, the pattern is not new. Charismatic leadership can inspire profound devotion, but it can also create environments where accountability becomes difficult. In that sense, the current controversy represents a familiar moment in the long story of religious reform. Communities built on spiritual passion must eventually decide how to guard that passion from manipulation. For some observers, the Reed allegations highlight the urgent need for transparency and independent oversight in ministries that claim extraordinary spiritual authority. For others, the controversy is a reminder that no leader, no matter how gifted, should be placed beyond questioning. The story continues to unfold as critics, supporters, and investigators sort through competing claims and evidence. But one lesson already appears clear. Spiritual authority carries immense power, and with that power must come structures strong enough to ensure it is used responsibly. Whether the charismatic movement ultimately embraces stronger accountability measures may shape the future of prophetic ministry for years to come. If you found this investigation insightful and want to follow future deep dive reports on issues shaping the modern church, consider subscribing for more thoughtful analysis.